G'day guys, today we're going to be throwing in one of these wireless remote setups. This is quite common in the modern house where you'd have your TV on the wall in one room and then your complete entertainment setup hidden away somewhere in a cupboard elsewhere. And what you want to do is control the TV with a remote without having the receiver unit nearby. So for instance, we're across the other side of the house right now and we have under the stairs here the entertainment unit with the Sky box. You got your home audio setup and other possibilities here. So today we're going to be wiring in the Sky remote. Looks like there's already one set up on this Blu-ray player. Specifically, we're going to be wiring in one for the Sky box into the lounge here. Now when this house was built, the good electricians put in some spare Ethernet cables between the TV setup and the box out under the stairs. So we're lucky that we've already got a cable in, therefore we don't have to waste time trying to figure out how we can run a cable. First thing we'll do is I'll grab a hand and we'll get this TV off the wall. Alrighty, the TV's down out of the road. Now this here is the recessed box behind this particular TV, and as you can see here there are some spare Ethernet cables and we're going to be using this blue one here. First of all, I want to make sure that this blue one actually goes back to the entertainment unit under the stairs. Unfortunately I don't have all my fancy gadgets with me today, so I don't have my cable toner, but what I'll be doing is a basic continuity test to find the other end of this cable. The first thing I'll look for is a label just to see if someone's labeled it. There's no such thing on this end, so we'll go and have a look under the stairs. Okay, this is atrocious. I'll be doing a video following this on tidying this rubbish up and then setting this out properly as it should have been done in the first place. What I have found here is the lounge TV, and this is the one taped in with the blue cable. So what I'll do is I'll use this blue cable here, and as you would have seen, this was taped together at the other end so we can easily identify which blue cable it is. So I won't be using the one I picked out earlier, I'll be using the other blue cable that's spare at the other end. Now I'll open the box up and have a look what we got inside. Rightio, so from the box we have our module and power adapter for the module. We have our receiver, so this one goes on the TV and receives the output from the remote, and then our emitter which comes out of this module unit and outputs the infrared signal received from the remote straight to the Sky box in this case. These other cables that came in the box, we don't need to use those, so they can just stay in there. This infrared module, we will be cutting it in half and reusing both ends at either end. So at the other end we correctly identified these two cables, but we don't want to assume that the electrician in the past has taped the right two cables together. So now I'm going to strip this cable back on this end. Now I've stripped the insulation off the two blue cores, but we'll go to the other side and do the same there. Now under the staircase we've got the other end here. We've twisted together the two blue cores, so now we'll go back to the other end and test to ensure it's the correct cable we've got. Back at the TV end, get our multimeter out, throw it onto ohms, and you'll see that wee sound bar symbol there. It means it's on continuity. So when we touch the two ends and close the circuit, it makes that buzzing noise. Now you'd expect the same if we touch the two ends to either end of this blue cable, because what we've done is close the circuit at the other end of this cable. Now we'll quickly go back to the other end and disconnect the end and test it again. Disconnect them so they're not touching, and then back at the TV end we test one more time to ensure the circuit is now opened, which it is, and we test that to make sure the meter's functioning properly. So we have correctly identified both ends of this cable. Now what we'll do is we'll cut the receiver up into two pieces. What I want to do is leave the end that's near the TV significantly longer than the other end, because we want this to be hidden as much as possible and we only need a small amount under the stairs to connect onto the other cable. So I'll be cutting this one roughly about where my finger is. I'm going to strip both ends back to expose the cores. Sweet. So as you can see on either end there are 4 cores, red, white, black and green. Now we want to make sure when we connect these to the Cat 6 cable here that the configuration we wire it to on either end corresponds with the opposing side. The first one we'll connect up will be the receiver unit. Now the optimal way to connect these cut ends is to use these squishies or telecommunication connectors. First thing I'm going to do is pair the two cables up side by side, and I'm going to slide a piece of heat shrink over them, holding them together. Just like that, I've thrown a bit of heat shrink over the two cable ends, firmly holding them together, so if someone was to accidentally pull one, it's not going to compromise the connections up here. Now if you didn't have heat shrink, of course people would generally use insulation tape. Again, that's less tidy, still does the same sort of job. Because we have 4 different cable colours here that we need to connect up to these Cat 6s, I'll be using the 4 cores of the blue and the orange. So the brown and the green will be obsolete, so I just twist these round the heat shrink here. So this is now what the cable end looks like. So I'll be pairing the red to the orange, the white to the orange and white striped cable, the green to the blue and white striped, and the black to the blue. Take note of it for the second end connection. Now we're going to put some squishy connectors on these cable ends and ensure that they have made contact with the copper of each cable. Now you'll notice that the Cat 6 is slightly larger than the stranded cable that comes with it. I'm not sure if it's 0.25mm copper ends on the actual kit cable, receiver cable here. What we'll do is we'll clamp with these squishy connectors. We'll stagger them, one end in here and the opposite end as far away as we can. We don't want this contact strip here to seesaw over the cable if we put them both next to each other in the 2 slots. We want it to clamp down on both of them nicely. So I hope you can see the interior of that. It is see-through and you can see the contact strip inside it. And the cable ends slide into one of those 3 holes. So we'll be doing the 2 outside holes when we do these. Kind of need my tripod here, but we'll make do. So I'll slide the blue into one end. As you can see, we make sure it goes all the way through past that metal strip right to the end, and then the black end will poke in the opposite side. So the connector looks like that. We've got black in one side and blue in the other, and they're pushed right in to the end. And now what we want to do, get the pliers out and carefully but firmly press down on the squishy connector, and you'll see some gel will ooze out the end there. That's absolutely fine, but check to make sure on all the angles that the copper of each cable has been pierced and makes contact with the inside of the connector there. And now we'll repeat that with the other ends. Alrighty, so these ends are now all connected up together. Fold them up tidily and throw a bit of heat shrink over the whole lot. So as you can see, I've staggered them out a bit with no stress on each one, and I'll just simply slide a bit of heat shrink over and very carefully shrink it down slightly, just like that. Now I was very careful as to how much heat I exposed over the whole thing at once, so I did it very slowly. Now what I'll do is fold the top over and slide a wee bit extra over while it's still hot to hold it in. That there is the end product. Now I don't recommend using heat shrink on these particular cables or joins unless you're being very careful with the amount of heat you put on them, so just be aware of that. If you're not comfortable with it, definitely use insulation tape instead. Put a wee box over them, put them somewhere where they're not going to get snagged or pulled on. Anyway, that's the TV end set up there. Now I'll go and do the other end of the cable. Now we're doing the same again on this opposite end. Make sure that each cable core is the same corresponding one. Now I would look into doing an Ethernet end like this on the end of the cable, ensuring that it pairs up with exactly where the placement is on this one, except I don't have the correct crimping tool on me today, hence I'll be just connecting it exactly the way I did as the first cable. So now that we've got both sides done, what I'm going to do is set up the receiver box. Now on the back of here I've put some double-sided tape that, if you know what these are, they are cable tie clamps that you can just stick onto things and then cable tie a cable to. So I've pulled the sticky bit off that. I mean, alternatively you can use blue tack. So I'll find a suitable location for that. Anyway, what I'll need is to get the power adapter and plug it into there, and then plug it into the multi-box at the back, which is probably full as it is in most houses. whenever you go to do these things, so we have to find a way to plug it in somewhere. When you're sticking these to something, they obviously do have these screw holes in them where you can screw it to the wall there. I'm probably going to end up sticking that temporarily to there. When I clean this cabinet out, is that there will then be transferred into here. And if you were going to stick it on these appliances, just make sure you're not going to obscure any vents on them. And also be aware that some of them can operate quite warm. I would recommend staying away from securing it onto other appliances. So I've got the box sitting on here. Now this is a temporary install. What I've done is plug in the receiver and the power supply. And the next one we'll do is the transmitters. To set up the transmitter ends, they're these wee ends here. What you want to do is peel the tape off and sit them right on where the infrared sensor is on here. If there's multiple ones, use both. If there's only one, then just use one and leave the other one on the cable. Easy way to find them, get a wee torch out and shine it along the face of whichever digital box you're connecting into. And as you may be able to see, I have located it. It's between where the Wi-Fi light would be and the guide button. There is one just under the right where my finger is. So we'll be placing one of these ends and sticking it on right there. The other end I won't need to use, so I'll quickly do that off camera. So it's simply stuck on there like so. I did give this a good wipe just to prolong the life of the stickiness on the back of this, and then with the other end of the cable we'll connect it into one of these outputs here of the IR emitter. So that's all plugged in there. Now I've tidily tucked the cables out of the way. I would properly tie them in, but there's no point doing it. As you can see, the state of this area, so we'll be cleaning this up at some stage. Now the final part, we'll move on to throwing the TV back on the wall and putting the receiver on the TV. Awesome, so the TV's back on the wall and all the cables are connected into the back of it. The only one is the receiver here, that's not. Now we need to find a suitable location, just tilt that a wee bit, on one of the four corners of the TV. Preferably I'd have it at the bottom for aesthetics. Some people have them at the tops, but you just got to make sure that wherever you put it is not going to impede the location of the existing receiver that's built into the TV. Now the existing one on this particular model is right there in the center, so I'm going to put it on the left hand corner of the TV, bit of sticky tape, peel it off and put it on the corner there. Alright, perfect, so that sits there quite nicely. Now what I'm going to do to finish it off is to throw one of these cable tie mounts that I was talking about earlier. I'll stick it on the back of the TV somewhere out of sight and cable tie this cable to it, so it's tucked in there really nicely. I've stuck the wing mount there. Now what you can do, simply slide a cable tie through it, throw the cable up and pull it tight. So now it looks just like that. When you're using cable ties on any type of data cable, just be very, very careful not to over tighten it and destroy the insides of the cable. Generally you'll find nowadays we use Velcro around data cables just because of that. So if you are going to use a cable tie on them, just tight enough to have a firm grip on the cable is good enough. Sweet as. So we've got it on normal TV here. Chuck it onto whichever HDMI the sky is on. Now the moment of truth. Look at that, channel 3, prime. Perfect. So if for any reason this isn't working, firstly make sure you got the system connected up properly, and then secondly go through your connections and make sure you haven't compromised a cable somewhere. I've got the volume off for a reason. It is through ceiling speakers, just so it doesn't compromise the video. But there you go guys, that's how you set up an extension kit for applications like Sky TV, where you don't want to have the box near the TV and you've got an entertainment unit in the house somewhere else. All of the gear used in these videos are available at your local electrical wholesalers. Cheers for watching, make sure you subscribe, there are a shit ton of videos coming out very shortly.